Hey, Rob, you are going to show off storage control with ThreatLocker. And also, we're going to see network control. But let's just start with storage control. It sounds pretty simple, just controlling access to storage, yes?
That I couldn't have put it better myself, David. Yes, it is generally speaking about controlling access to storage. So there's a few different parts of it. I mean, first of all, as with most things, visibility is really important. So
Right.
I want to be able to see reads, writes, copies, moves, all that kind of stuff within an environment. That's the first thing we do. We basically log everything that happens. So every time you open a document, every time something gets moved, copied, deleted, everything is going to be logged and visible here within the audit. But then obviously going on from that, we're going to talk about controlling it as well. So as I said, reads, writes, etc., they're all there and stored. Now, storage control can be used in really basic, simple ways. I mean, probably the simplest way of using storage control is to block something like USBs. I mean, most environments, most people don't want USB drives, just in case. Some tools will do it, but it tends to be a pretty blunt instrument with a lot of solutions. So they're just blocked or not blocked, and it's not very granular. With this, we can be very specific. So I've got a policy here within my environment, which is basically a block access to USBs policy. Now, what that looks like in practical terms is if I try and access a USB, I get a block, a deny, it's not allowed to access it. But much like with our application control, we want to make it easy for people to request access if they need it. So it's
Right.
going back to the idea of deny by default, permit by exception. So this is how we create the permit by exception. So I needs to use this. Okay, so the user sends a request through to the administrator. The administrator once again picks it up in the response center, and then they can decide what they want to do.
So I plug in a USB drive. I can't access it. I put the request in. Does the administrator now, can they see that USB drive? Like, what visibility do they have into it?
They can't see the contents of it. What they can see is the USB or the serial number of the drive. So they can't see the contents at this point. So as I said, I'm just going to create a policy. I'm going to call this Rob's USB. It's quite handy sometimes. Like, it might be a USB that you need to use on multiple computers. So I can create a policy for the workstations group. I can create a policy for the entire organization if it's something that I know needs to be plugged into everybody's machine. But realistically, it's probably going to be specific to this computer.
Right.
If I want, I can get really granular. I can say, look, only this user can access this USB as well. So even
Sure.
lower level. But then I can decide, okay, I want to give them read access or read and write access. Again, maybe I want them to be able to copy files off it, but not back onto it. Might be a good idea. And basically just, you'll see here, it is specific to this drive's serial number. So it's not just any USB drive, it's this specific serial number that we're going to allow. And once again, I can permit, if I only want to allow encrypted USB drives, I can do that as well. And I can expire policies. So I can say, for example, I want this user to be able to use this drive for 2 hours and no more. So once I approve that, basically within 60 seconds, I'll get a notification down here saying the drive is good to go. I get a notification to say the drive is good to go. And now the drive is accessible. So I can do what I need to do, what I want to do with that drive. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about sort of more advanced storage control now in a moment. So, for example, I could, if I wanted, have amended that policy to say only allow access to JPEG files on that drive. Don't allow Word documents or spreadsheets or PDFs.
So that's a good point, saying that I just need access to this image here, and there might be an executable, and you don't want them to have access to that.
Yeah, very often something like this is going to be somebody wants to copy photos off or something like that. And as I said, we can get into the level of specific file extensions if we want to. But where storage control gets really interesting is when you start talking about what programs have access to what data. So if we go into our policies here, I'll give you an example. So I've got policies here for various different locations within my environment. So I want to monitor things like OneDrive, for example. I've got policies for my backup share. Let's use this public share one as an example. So basically the public share is a share on my server. But what we're doing here is we're limiting it to specific programs. So you'll see here I've specifically said Explorer, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Notepad are allowed to access this folder. Okay, so if you think about it, one of the big problems and one of the reasons that ransomware is as prevalent or data exfiltration is as successful as it is because once Rob has access to data, everything Rob runs has access to that data as well. So whether it be a good program, a bad program, malware, ransomware, if I've got access to stuff, it all has access to that stuff too. So what we can do here, and once again, coming back to deny by default, permit by exception, we're going to deny all programs from accessing this location except these ones that are listed. So what that means in practical terms is I can, as a user, do what I need to do on this public share. So I need to open documents, I need to be able to open text files, for example. Now, this is important as well. So I'm going to open that in Notepad because Notepad was one of the programs that was on that list I showed you. But if I try and open or access any of this data with a program that wasn't on that list, so say, for example, I try and open this document, which I could open no problem in Microsoft Word. If I try and open that, for example, in WordPad, it's not going to be able to open it. Now, it's not about WordPad or, let me see, where's WordPad? So it's not about WordPad realistically, it's about a piece of ransomware. So if I did manage to get something bad into this environment, if I did manage to run ransomware, when it tries to access these files, so same thing here with this, I could open it no problem with Notepad because it's on the list of approved programs. If I try and open that in Notepad++, it's not going to be able to, because Notepad++, the program, doesn't have access to this.
And this goes to something we've been talking about before, is that malicious attackers can use other applications to essentially backdoor into other applications.
Well, it's not even only about that. I mean, absolutely, that is one thing. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, if I didn't have this storage control policy in place and I wanted to exfiltrate all the data out of this folder, there's nothing to stop me doing it. I just run a PowerShell command, and that PowerShell command will upload the data to wherever I want to upload it to. But again, if PowerShell, the program, doesn't have access to that location, I can't do that. I mean, realistically, we only had, 7 or 8 programs that were on that list. I mean, Word, for example. I mean, you can do data exfiltration with Word, but it's going to take you a while because you're going to need to go to File, open a file, save it somewhere else. File, open a file. And that doesn't work for a ransomware operator. They're not going to do that. They want to be able to run one command or use Orclone or use any program that's available to them to exfiltrate the data. If you can't do that, if they can't get at this data, and again, this is a relatively broad example with all of these programs. I mean, you can get very specific with this as well. So say something like a backup share or a backup location. If you think about it logically, why would anything other than your backup software need to access a backup location? I mean, in this case, we're using Veeam. Okay, so Veeam can access this data. Nothing other than Veeam can access this data.
No, I totally understand.
One of the first things that they'll do is they get into an environment, they're going to try and wipe out backups. They're going to delete them, encrypt them, do anything they can to take backups out of play. But if you can't access that location with anything other than Veeam, it makes it really hard.
Right. And by the way, this is just good security philosophy. Make the experience for the attacker as difficult as possible.
Absolutely.
What's the most common way your customers are using it, Ben?
Common, block USBs. I mean, pretty much everybody does that because it's basically a no-brainer. I'll give you another example. I mean, as I said, going back to the visibility for 1 second, just being able to see everything that's happening from a storage perspective is so important.
Right.
So I can see here, basically, these are the files that were opened on this server. I can see here the file that I wasn't able to access using the program that wasn't allowed to access it. So having that visibility is so important. So
this is great for forensics as well.
This is exactly the point I was going to make, is that we have customers who have used this for SLED investigations. In some cases, people have been exonerated by the storage control, showing that they didn't actually do what they were accused of doing. In some cases, people have actually been convicted on the basis of evidence of the stuff that we've got in our audit, because it is full visibility. I can see, hang on a second, somebody accessed the staff salaries. Okay, why did they access the staff salaries? Again, you can see, you know, it having this visibility as well. If an attack is underway, it makes it very apparent very quickly, because you can see, hang on a second, there's been 1,000 writes and 1,000 deletions on my server. This suggests something is going on, and that can tie in with something like, and I know we're going to talk about it separately, something like our MDR. So we can create a policy that says if there's 1,000 writes and 1,000 deletions on a server in a relatively short period of time, something's going on, shut down reads and writes. And again, that's something we can do with storage control. We can just block all reads and writes to a storage location.
Excellent. Well, for you, the audience, want to learn more about storage control and all the capabilities that ThreatLocker has, you got to go check them out. Go to their website, ThreatLocker.com. The URL is right there at the bottom of the screen. Check them out.